Howdy ho, folks. It is Wednesday, a little later than I normally stream on Wednesdays. I am figuring it out. Still figuring it out. When you have kids, it is always tricky to to figure out how you're going to juggle everything. So that is the problem that I am facing now. And that's okay. It will improve in time. So, but we have some fun stuff to do tonight. And I am tired but excited. Tired but excited. I spent the majority of my day on Zoom today. Now you guys see why I wear the beanie. What can I say? It's not about being self-conscious, really. It's more about keeping my hair out of my face. When I had short hair, this was not a problem. I didn't really wear a beanie. Not even really in the winter all the time. Sometimes I did. But then when I got long hair, it was like I had to. It just kept everything out of my face. And in the summer, I wear a baseball cap because it keeps everything out of my face because it's annoying. So I know I'm thinning out on top. I'm not. I mean, I don't even really care. It's gotten a little thin, but hey, whatever. My dad started going bald in high school, and by the time he was, oh gosh, I'm going to be turning 37 this year. So by the time he was my age, he was literally bald all the way back to here, like nothing, all the way back to like the middle of his head and beyond. So I don't even care. I'm not even self-conscious about it. My son points it out to me every now and then and laughs at me. He's like, "You're going bald, Dad." I'm like, "Okay, yep, it happens. It happens. No big deal. No big deal." And my dad's side of the family, bald. Well, I think it's not every man on that side of the family. My uncle isn't. He's thinning, but he's not that bald. My grandfather, though, man, and my dad got his genes. But then on my mom's side of the family, my grandfather, he passed away. Gosh, almost 20 years ago now. But he passed away when I was 18, and yeah, he still had all his hair. It was gray, but he had all his hair. So I guess I got something kind of in between. I don't get to be bald, and I don't get to keep all my hair. I get to kind of have that awkward, in between stage. I did a lot of talking today, so I will be hydrating probably multiple times throughout the stream. Let's see. Is that? Whoa. Okay, that was quick. Let me adjust. This always happens to me. I was not prepared for that. It just jumped up there. Okay, we're doing our weekly update progress report on Scions of Oth. So you know kind of where we're at. The developmental edit on Dark Horse is a little slow. I am trying to get into more of a routine with that. I will probably be spending some time on that later on in the stream, getting some developmental editing going on there with that. Kind of need to. So we're sitting at kind of a measly 10%, which should hopefully pick up in terms of pace relative. It has to. It really has to. I don't have much of a choice. I really don't have much of a choice on this one. And then Zeppler doubling, we are finished with the first draft, and it is going into line editing. Not the most satisfying percentage here because the line editing hasn't started yet, but it is ready for line editing. And so is this next project. And I haven't, I think I mentioned this project last time around, Project Jotnar. This is not a finalized cover image here. This is just a temporary image. And it is going to be, it's a fun story. I just finished it off. I think technically I finished it off was it this morning? I think I had a few words to finish on that first draft. So I literally finished this morning, and I started it on, I think, did I start it on Friday or Saturday? One or the other. So a good first draft. It is the beginning of a parallel series to Scions of Oth. It is in the same universe, but with different characters, and it is a different style of sci-fi. So it is not necessarily space opera explicitly, although, I mean, it would fit into space opera. A lot of stuff would fit into space opera, but it is a sort of, imagine space marine, post-apocalyptic, alien invasion science fiction. That's what it is. So the premise and the concept, an alien race has invaded and has conquered humanity with relative ease, and they have begun experimenting on humans, enlisting some of them into the ranks of their enforcers, and they do this through body modifications and gruesome stuff. That's really odd. So I just realized that my on stream it's the opposite. Okay, that's because it's mirrored. Sorry, I just had a realization that the screen is covering up my face, and I didn't know it. Let's see if that's better. That's not better, but it'll do. It'll do. It's better than what it was before. Okay. Anyway, cut to the chase. Cut to the chase here, Jack. The series, like I said, involves an alien invasion. It is sort of set in that post-apocalyptic setting. Humans have been enlisted into the ranks of the aliens' enforcers, and they're using them to round up the rest of humanity and experimenting on them. But there is a sliver of humanity left remaining, and they have managed to get their hands on one of those who was chosen by the alien overlords, and managed to actually sort of win them back, if you will. So the aliens they're the Grakon is what they're called, and the Grakon, when they capture someone, they will, like I explained, body modifications. Think body horror type of stuff, and also they will implant things into them, modify their genome, all these things, make them stronger, faster. But they also imbue them with a certain kind of chitin or chitin, I guess is probably how it's actually pronounced, chitin. Um, uh, Chitin. I believe it's actually chitin, but I always say it in my head as chitin because I don't know. That's just a carryover, but I believe it's actually called chitin, and it grows over their skin and makes them look inhuman and whatnot. But the human military managed to survive. Found one of these guys who was basically, kind of left for dead by the Grakon, and managed to, um, with enough drugs, get him to be able to comply and basically be human again. And he has retained all of the essentially the modifications that were made to him by the Grakon. And now they are turning him into a tool to fight back against them. That is the whole story there in a nutshell. This book is going to be a free book. Actually, it is a it's a novella, novelette maybe, but uh, just shy of a novella. It's just shy of 20,000 words. So it is about that length, and it will be sort of the introduction to this series. So it's going to be free. I don't have it available just yet. It will go through a rudimentary line edit before it goes into beta reading mode, and it will be available to anybody when it's in that mode, and feedback can be provided. So that is exciting. Automaton Hoax. This is book 12, the third book of season 2. I started that today, and I am 9% of the way through. Today was a little bit tough. It always is a little bit harder just getting started with a new book. Sometimes you have to get in the groove, and I kind of have to get in the groove with this one and explore some things. Also, I didn't have as much time to write today as I was hoping. Otherwise, this would be above 10%. And I would have gotten a little bit farther. Actually, in fact, it was probably be closer to 12%, which is ideal. So that is the weekly update. So hopefully you're all excited for that. Pre-release details for episodes 10, 11, and 12 will be coming out on April 1st. And that's not a joke. I will be announcing the pre-releases for those who are on my mailing list. If you want to be on my mailing list, you can just go to scionsofoff.com, sign up. You'll be able to get a free book too, right? And you can join my mailing list and get the announcement. I also will be releasing a boxed set of season 1 in April as well. So that will be essentially at a reduced price. So if instead of buying individual episodes, you can buy the whole thing. And now that I've said it here on the internet, I have to follow through with it. Right? So that is the update. I think my internet connection is unstable. Well, that's lovely. So my stream looks like crap. I can see that now. That's not pretty. That's not pretty. Ah. Okay. We have some memes to review. Oh, we're just going right into it? Yeah. Let me figure this out. There we go. Okay. All right. It is time for the Sci-Fi Meme Review. This is episode 2. We're going to continue where we left off last time. Here. TV rule number 27. At some point, there will always be a Wild West themed episode. I believe we're looking at Doctor Who here. the Wild West episodes are interesting. My favorite is probably Red Dwarf. There were a few in Red Dwarf. The dynamic of that show was something special. That's just the cast that they had. They were amazing. They were really something special. I want to try this layout, see how it does. Yeah, it's okay. I don't know why it was all screwy before, but I'm here. Do I have to go this way? A little bit? I think I gotta go this way. I'm watching. Okay, there we go. Me versus Monday. Fantasy and sci-fi. Yes, that is accurate for some people, I suppose. I don't mind Mondays. I guess that means maybe I don't mind the Sarlacc pit, but he pulled through. It's canon now. He actually survived. So finally, after all these years, it's one thing that Disney did right, I suppose, by Star Wars, is they got Boba Fett right for a glimmer of a moment. They got that part of it right. I think we can agree on that. Admiral Bill Adama simply walks into Mordor. He would. Now, would he survive? I don't know. That's hard to tell. But he would. That is exactly his style. That is exactly his style. Chuck Norris is afraid of Adama. Okay, this one, this could have been better executed by this meme smith, but you could probably turn this into a Chuck Norris joke, a Bill Adama joke. I could see that. I could see that working. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I think you'd get some pushback. You get some pushback from the Chuck Norris fans. Oh boy. Every group project, the one who does nothing but takes all the credit anyway. The one who thinks yelling at everyone makes him the leader. The one who sits in the corner making shit jokes. The one who actually does all the work, but says nothing. Yeah. Accurate. Rogue One, I felt like it actually added something to Star Wars. I didn't mind Rogue One. I felt like it was a safe enough bet on the part of Disney. And I don't know. I enjoyed it. I didn't mind it. But then again, that was quite a while ago. That was before a lot of, basically that's before 90% of Disney Star Wars now. So if it were released now, would it be received the same way that it had been at that time? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe not. Oh. See, Guys, if you want to homeschool your kids, just turn on Red Dwarf. Oh, yes, a classic. Oh, this show. I need to watch this show again. It's oh my goodness. It has, for those of you who haven't seen it, it has kind of a few phases it goes through. Like it kind of goes through puberty a little bit and then finds its stride. But the early stuff is still hilarious. It's still just absolutely hilarious. They found their dynamic though once they had Lister, Rimmer, the cat, and Crichton. The four of them playing off each other was that was peak sci-fi comedy. Peak. I don't know anyone who can. I don't know. I know Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is what people are going to say, but for me personally, this is where it's at. This is where it's at. In all honesty, now Red Dwarf did. I don't know. Red Dwarf maybe had some small amount role to play in inspiring me as an author. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. I don't know. I guess I haven't really thought about it all that much. Just goofy. Good show. Go watch it. Is this what is this supposed to be like? This is two memes. There's two memes on this page. I don't know what to think of this. So we have the left-hand column. Okay, this is all screwy. This is screwing with my head because I'm like, how is this related? I was trying to read it. Like the cat. What does the cat have to do with it? It's the Ghostbusters. It's just that, that lady yelling at the cat meme, but in Ghostbusters form, I guess. But on the right-hand side, are replicators a good thing? It depends on the franchise. Star Trek, yes. Stargate, no. Yep. Sci-fi is when Hugo Weaving looks like this, and fantasy is when Hugo Weaving looks like this. Yes, there's a number of these. I got to be careful because these will probably get pretty old. Like, yeah, actors are in multiple movies. It happens. But he played both characters well. Oh, damn it. Carl Urban. This guy, though, he's Billy Butcher in The Boys. It always just hits me because that's what I see him as now. And went back and watched Lord of the Rings. And I'm sorry, Carl Urban didn't catalog you in my brain until I saw The Boys. I'm like, oh, yeah. Then I watched Lord of the Rings after that and was like, wait a minute. And then I noticed he's everywhere. He's in Thor Ragnarok. And yeah, here he is in Star Trek. He's all over the place. And he's one of those actors that he like flew under the radar for me personally for a while. And now, like, wherever he is, I see him. And I'm a fan. So, he good job. Good on you, Carl Urban. Good on you. Damn it. Again, it's the same sort of thing. Yes, Sean Bean. Well, this isn't accurate. This is not accurate. This meme is not correct because we're missing Equilibrium, which falls in the science fiction genre. Equilibrium, Christian Bale is in that. It's a cult, has a cult following. It's slightly campy, but it's kind of a gun nuts version of the Matrix, which is saying a lot because there's lots of guns in the Matrix, but this is like even more like to a greater degree. even more so. But no, he doesn't get to live in science fiction either. I'm sorry. He just doesn't. Yeah. Okay, not science fiction. To be fair, this is a fantasy meme. This is a straight up fantasy meme. I'm not gonna lie. I understand that. Okay, but it makes the cut uh, for reasons. I mean, we've got some reasons here why it makes the cut. I'd say that's pretty accurate. It seems accurate to me. But Captain, one does not simply warp into Mordor. Oh yes. Okay. Ha ha ha. No comment. No comment. Is this from an actual? Yeah. This looks like it's from a podcast. I haven't seen that podcast. I'm just gonna assume it's real. It wouldn't surprise me if it were real. If somebody made it up, it's still true. So, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So you're saying that Star Wars is about an angsty teen that brought about the near extinction of sword wizards because he was upset about not getting a promotion. Ah, was it though? Was it about that? Was it really about that? I don't know. I don't know if it was explicitly about that. It might have been about also like the trauma that he went through. So I don't know if it was just well, Lucas didn't execute on it very well. He didn't execute on it very well when he chickened out. Lucas chickened out with the prequel trilogy. He chickened out. Episode 1 was heavily criticized, and he pulled back from his original plan. He stated this in interviews that he modified his plan, and his original vision he pulled back from, and he shouldn't have. He should have stuck with it because it's my headcanon now, even though he didn't commit to it and Disney basically has erased it. He should have just committed to it, and he pulled back, and it has to do with the Emperor and his relation to Anakin and all of that stuff, and he pulled back from it. But really, in the end, what can you say? I don't know, but you can. It is what it is. You have to let it go. Yeah, I think the prequel trilogy is its own thing, and the original trilogy is its own thing, and the sequel trilogy is a thing, and that's just where I choose to leave it, personally. Well, so that has been the sci-fi meme review for this week. Lots of fun. We have more memes to review. Next time, I need to probably grab some more. I've got plenty. Okay, I'm looking at them now. I'm just glancing through them. Okay. All right. As they say. We're going to get into some editing here. This will be a walk in the park, really, right? Always is. All right, I'm going to have to share my screen, and it's going to be kind of trippy, so hang on. Ooh, I think I need to do that. And that. And there we are. I tried to make that as quick as possible because it's a little bit of an awkward transition. I don't have the perfect setup at this moment. I'm working on getting a little better setup here so that I'm able to make transitions like that a little bit smoother. But as you can see, I have the StreamYard logo on my live stream. So we're kind of, I'm not saying here that we're, on a shoestring budget here, but, not a whole lot of bells and whistles right now. And that's fine. That is totally fine. Okay, so last time we were going through Bad Bishop and doing some touch-ups. We're going to continue on with that and then probably get to some developmental editing tonight on Dark Horse. So that's going to be the way we're going to go here. Okay, so I think we left off here. This chapter needed way too much attention. This chapter needs, honestly, a whole damn rewrite, or nearly an entire rewrite of this whole section here. It's a short chapter too. So this is what? How many words is this? Pardon my endless scrolling. Holy cow. 720 words that needs to be rewritten. It's probably going to wind up being closer to 1,500 words. That's my guess. This chapter is good. This is a totally different character. And now we're getting into, really we have, this... yeah, we probably have some things we need to touch up on in here. Yeah. Yes, we do. Let's shut that down. And let's go ahead and get rolling.
Abby looked down at the master tabla base. The line Relic had drawn was a gambit, an obvious one. I know this is only a simulation, Ensign, but you have to do better than that. Just look at the tabla base. I have you on the hook. All you're doing is guaranteeing the catch. Finn Relic looked up at her, disappointed. Is that why they called you the Duffer Queen in Tactical? Off be damned. How she despised that nickname. Because I could always spot a duffer when I saw one? Yeah, probably. Finn folded his arms. Do it, then. Show me what I did wrong. Abby punched the commands into the simulation, then let it play out in real time. It only took a minute and Abby had won. You'll get better, she said, remembering all the times she had said that at the end of a simulation. Most of the time it was a lie. You think so? Finn looked up at her with a forlorn look in his eyes. She honestly had no idea. I do. The comm buzzed on the side of the command table. A welcome distraction. Yes, Commander, be honest with me now. Commander Growl said.
Yeah, I think that's better. It just comes off kind of.
The comm buzzed on the side of the command table. A welcome distraction. Yes, Commander, be honest with me now. Commander Growl said on the other end of the line. Are you just playing games there on the bridge while I'm in my quarters? Just a few, sir. She smirked at Relic. Someone has to teach these duffers how tacticians are supposed to think. Growl sighed in agreement. Tactical school isn't the same these days. Well, just don't embarrass anyone. Oh, and before I forget, Ensign, what's her name? Sasha, sir, right. She screwed up the data backup on one of the tabla bases and corrupted the files. That needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. Until then, no more games. Aye, sir. The commander hung up and Abby started to work on the tabla base. So, the commander is getting after you for playing games while he's in his quarters sipping on scotch and binging last season's blitzball playoffs. That image in her mind made her laugh. He's working from his quarters. He's the XO. That's the way it is until Captain Norim gets back from adjudication, Abby replied. And he prefers whiskey, I think. It had been 2 weeks already. After what happened on Furladen, she knew it was going to be a while before things got back to normal, but much longer and it didn't look good for Gerald. A prolonged adjudication was never good for the one standing trial. What was worse, though, was that he didn't speak a word to her before he left. If and when Gerald came back, she wasn't sure what to expect. She shook her head, clearing her thoughts, and focused back on the task at hand. The corrupted data files were giving her a headache. I doubt the XO would have to deal with this if he were on deck, Relic quipped. That's right, we would instead, which is why he's working from his quarters. Because nothing would be any different if he were here. After a few more minutes of staring blankly at the database screen, a light flickered in the corner of the display. We're being hailed, ma'am, one of the ensigns from the upper deck said. It is a MESAV vessel, Centurion class. Weapons are not armed. She waited a moment, considering her approach. After their last encounter with MESAV, Abby wasn't sure what to expect. Send summons to Commander Growl to report to the bridge at once and inform him of the situation. Yes, ma'am. Abby tapped the database. This is Lieutenant Abigail Faulkner, acting captain of the Saren battlecruiser, Intrepid. Who am I speaking with and what is your request? The voice on the other end bellowed with laughter. Why am I speaking with a woman? Where is Captain Norim? Abby rolled her eyes. The MESAV had their own view of gender roles, but the women were somehow worse. She'd heard. I am acting captain at this time. Do I have to repeat that again or is that clear? A loud sigh could be heard on the other end of the comm. This is Captain Augur of the MESAV vessel. Last rest. I have been given orders to pursue your vessel and bring you in to face charges for your actions against our Emperor's royal fleet. This is something for the adjudicators and the tribunal to handle, Captain. In fact, they're handling that right now. So unless you have something, your battlecruiser fled the scene of Furladen before we could take your captain into custody. As you were within our jurisdiction at the time, you have violated the Emperor's law and must be brought forth his courts at once. Furladen was no longer under MESAV jurisdiction at the time of that incident. Captain, need I remind you that Saren took over rotation of that sector 2 months in advance. The Emperor's territory does not shrink simply because the tribunal decrees it. Tribunal law does not supersede the will of the Emperor. This was going nowhere. We were ordered to leave Furladen at once by our own Admiralty. Abby replied. If you have any issues you need to take it up with them. She muted the comm, jabbed her eyes at Ensign Relic. Any word on the commander? Is he on his way? Relic froze in her sight and shrugged. Captain Augur was still going. We have evidence that your ship was lying in wait over Furladen to ambush our passing supply routes. What in Off's name? We did no such thing, Captain. In fact, it was your vessel that ambushed us while we were defending ourselves from the Kraken. That is a patent lie, Augur screamed, his voice becoming garbled on the comm. By order of His Excellency, Lord and Emperor of MESAV and all his royal territories, Nebuchadnezzar Vassilis Chadrazar the Great, I order your vessel to comply to our demands or we will open fire on you at once. Relic looked at her grimly. Their weapons are charging. Ma'am, we await your order. Abby looked down at the screen, and Master Tablabase offered several strategies. Abby was glad she'd taken the time to get to know her in Gerald's absence. The last rest was just a little purple dot on the screen before her, but in reality, it was a giant gun pointed at her head. Prepare wings 1 and 2 for immediate launch.
Okay. Short little chapter here. This is kind of funny, this character. This character I don't think comes up later. It's probably better to mention a different character then. Hurley is another character who's going to show up later. Much longer, and it didn't look good for. So I think what I was trying to say here, she knew it was going to be a while before things got back to normal. But if it took much longer, it didn't look good for Gerald. Never a good sign. There we go. I will say he had hardly spoken a word to her before he left. If and when Gerald came back, she wasn't sure what to expect. This is fine. Still in the wake of Scylla's death. But the women were somehow worse. So Masav is on the surface a patriarchy, right? But it is underneath the covers really a matriarchy in some ways. Oh, there's the first yawn. Uh-oh, it's only 10:30. So it's a patriarchy in the sense that the men have apparent control, but the women have actual control, right? In other ways. All right. The women were worse. Masav had their own view of gender roles, but the women were somehow, or so she'd heard, were somehow worse, were somehow, well, it's saying like, it's not saying worse than what? Worse than the men. I would say as bad as the men were, the women were somehow worse, or so she'd heard. Excellency. It should be majesty. It should be majesty. Right? Majesty. His Majesty, Lord and Emperor of Masav, and all his royal territories, Nebuchadnezzar Vasilius Shadrazar the Great. Just curious if that's the... Yep. Okay. Works for me. Oh, yeah. This chapter. Oh, boy. For the CSS. I don't know that, yeah, there's probably some touch-ups to do here.
Prince Ebener sat in his quarters on board the CSS Majestic. She was a Queen-class ship, one of the most powerful in all the Glom. Ever since he'd been a boy, learning the subtleties of chess beneath his tutors in his father's royal house, he had fantasized about actually being on one of these ships. It was an odd obsession to have for a Mesav prince and heir to the throne of the emperor. Get focused now, Ambassador Ulak said in a deep voice from above him. He was nearly 2 heads taller than Eben, as were all of his people. Do you remember the testimony you are to give when you stand before the tribunal? Of course I remember. We went over it 1,000 times on our journey here from the homeworld. Eben disliked the sound of his voice as it left his throat. How soft it was. How high-pitched. His condition made him, by comparison to his own kin, a puny runt, though among the other humans of the Glom he would appear normal, just like anyone else. He had been this way since birth, much to the chagrin of his father. Ulak was growing impatient. If you remember, then recite it. Eben shook his head out of fatigue, but he couldn't defy Ulak, not without repercussions. It has been found through thorough investigation by the Mesav Imperial Security Ministry that the captain of the vessel, Supreme Verdict, was not acting in accordance with the Emperor's edict, and that his actions do not represent the will of the Emperor or Mesav. The Saren Bishop-class battlecruiser, Intrepid, fired upon vessels of the Mesav Royal Fleet without provocation, and in so doing have committed an act of war and treason. You keep forgetting that part. Eben sighed. have committed an act of war and treason against Messav, the humble Zorak inhabitants of Furladan, and all the rest of humanity. Yulak turned his nose up at him. He couldn't correct what he said, only the lack of fervor with which he said it. Instead, he blamed Tarek. If only that foolish admiral had stayed within the Emperor's will, we wouldn't be in this mess. Are we certain that Tarek was disobeying orders? Eben asked. That doesn't seem like him. He's always been loyal to the throne of Messav. Yulak laughed. Your former mentor was devoted to your grandfather. Tarek has his own idea of loyalty. You'd be wise not to emulate him. The ambassador cleared his throat, folding his hands behind his back and pacing around the small quarters. Do you know why your father has sent you with me, young prince? Because I'm the least favorite of his 500 children. Yulak scowled, his tan forehead wrinkling. Be that as it may, it is not why he sent you. As his heir, you must learn the art of politics. This is your first test. If you don't want to displease your father any further, take your testimony seriously and deliver it with the full force and weight of the Emperor's throne. The ambassador looked down his nose at Eben. There was no question how much loathed the words he said next. One day it will be yours. Never did so many words mean so little to Eben, though, even coming from a lowly marquis such as Yulak. How many wives do you have, Yulak? Only 3, right? More than His Highness, at least. Even the Emperor cannot find a woman willing to breed with you. Dwarf. Then perhaps my father is looking in the wrong place. I hear that Saran women aren't so picky, and that they are supposed to be supreme in the art of love. Do not debase yourself. The door to their quarters opened with a whoosh. An officer dressed in gray entered, accompanied by 2 armed soldiers, in their customary black uniforms. Your Highness, the gray said, bowing with his head. The tribunal is prepared. If you would follow us. Eben and Yulak followed the Saran through a short corridor. The construction of their ships was peculiar, with more elevators than hallways. Eben now understood the insults that his people hurled at the Saran for their laziness, preferring to stand in an elevator than walk to where they needed to go. Frankly, Eben liked this better. How are you adjusting to our environmental settings, Your Highness? The Grey asked him. Quite well. The gravity is just right, not the usual crushing we receive on Messav. Yulak rolled his eyes. The doors opened, and the officer led them through another short corridor to a guarded room. Saran Marines lined the hallway, weapons at the ready. Eben stepped inside the tribunal chamber. A long table sat in the middle, spanning the entire length of the room. He took the seat across from the Saran adjudicators, standing out from the dull, functional-looking environment in their crisp, white uniforms. And then there was the one in gray who sat with them, the captain of the CSS Intrepid, the youngest person to attain the rank of captain in the Saran fleet. He was the man that Eben had heard stories of, who lived the life he wished he had, and he was the man that Eben's father wanted to blame for the mess that took place on Furladan. Gerald Norim, we meet at last. Eben tried to keep from smiling as he sat across from someone he idolized and respected. Yulak was always watching. A gavel struck a lectern at the head of the table. This tribunal is called into session. All who cannot keep their oaths of truthfulness are encouraged to vacate the tribunal chamber at once or risk the punishments associated with perjury. Yulak leaned over to Eben, whispering, It's rigged from the start, Your Highness. A Crimson has been selected to arbitrate this tribunal. Eben examined the Crimson man, if he could be called that, who stood behind the lectern. The only normal part about him was his body shape, for his face and all other visible parts of his flesh were extensively modified with implantation and replacement. The Crimson banner hung behind the lectern, a field of blue, silver, and yellow with the Crimson emblem of an hourglass, full on both sides. The banners of the other members of the Glom hung around the room as well, above the representatives from their factions seated at the table. The seats beneath the banner of Lanath were empty, as they had been since they'd fallen to the Grakhan, some 30 years earlier. I apologize if I offend either of your party's respective cultural expectations, the arbiter said. I will be dispensing with the formalities and delving straight away into the facts revolving around this Furladan incident. That was good news. The sooner Eben could leave the better. Our officials have personally handled the data from both the Saran and Messav actors involved in this dispute. The arbiter began. The facts seem apparent, though I know you are here to debate the nuances. The arbiter presented the story. He sided with the Saran, arguing that the data allowed no other alternatives. Eben wasn't surprised that his father had sent him here to argue against the truth. The representatives from Saran may now take the floor, the arbiter said. One of the adjudicators, a gray-haired woman of at least 60, rose from her seat. We yield the floor to the representatives from Messav. As a courtesy. Flattery? What need do they have of that? Eben stood, and Ulak with him to announce his presence. His Royal Highness, heir and highest vicar to the throne of Messav, Crown Prince of his royal subjects, Ebener Vilediah Chadrazar. It was a pronouncement that usually brought cheering on his homeworld, but here, in the tribunal hall, it fell flat on the ears of Saren, Kridzin, Zorak, and Vey. Ulak sat, and Eben eased. My fellow dignitaries, adjudicators and officers of the Saren fleet, I thank you for granting me this audience today. Eben started. He looked across the table at Captain Norim and hesitated a moment. News of conflict among the conglomerate is troubling to us, as I'm sure it is to you. I assure you that Messav's interest in all circumstances is peace. Someone entered the tribunal hall on the Saren side in the middle of his speech and approached Captain Norim, whispering in his ear. The Kridzin arbiter spoke up. Captain Norim, is there something here you'd like to share with us? I'll remind you that this tribunal is meant to be kept sterile from all outside influence. Gerald finished listening to the officer whispering in his ear, then sent them away. Apologies. As captain of a Saren ship in active rotation, I must be kept up to date on what is happening with my crew. Please make sure it doesn't happen again, the arbiter said. Please continue, Prince Ebener. Eben pursed his lips. It was time to give his testimony, and he wrestled with it silently for a moment. They were his father's words, not his, and his delivery was lacking. His father didn't trust him. This was no honor, telling his lies and half-truths in front of these people. When he was done, he sat down and felt heavy in his chair in spite of the weak artificial gravity. The tribunal hearing went on, but it was all a blur to him. The Saren adjudicators countered every point he'd argued. What was his father doing? Why this charade? If they had attacked the Saren, he should be man enough to admit it, rather than hiding behind his own son. The Kridzin arbiter struck his gavel. We have determined the testimony to be adequate. Our verdict resolute. Messav will cooperate with further investigations into their ship data, with Kridzin officials acting as intermediaries. If this data is in agreement with the testimony presented by the Saren Space Corps, Messav will face the harshest penalty under conglomerate law for inciting an act of war. All parties are dismissed. The tribunal was adjourned without any further ceremony, and Eben promptly left. Ulak was fuming behind him, but waited until they had returned to their quarters before starting his lecture. You made a fool of your father and all Messav today. Where was the authority in your voice? Where was your command? I have no authority. I'm a puppet. That's all I am. And no matter how much passion I'd put into that testimony, they wouldn't have listened anyway. My father sent me here to lie to the tribunal. And for what? What did he think it would accomplish? The Kridzin had his mind made up before we ever walked into that room. The lies he force-fed me made no difference. Ulak clenched his fists, stuck out his chest. The security of the Empire comes before all else. Even if you have to lie, you will do what your father asks of you. You do not question the orders he gives you, their purpose or their intent. There was a knock on the door. One of the prince's bodyguards stepped inside. Your Highness, your shuttle will be prepped within the hour. Eben took the opportunity to get out from under Ulak's thumb. Good. Do you know, is Captain Norim still around? Ulak grumbled in the background, but Eben ignored him as he stepped outside. The guard looked puzzled. He should be. My lord, I'd like to speak with him before I go. Eben's eyes drifted off down the hallway. Tell Ulak I'll be back shortly. The guard nodded and returned to his post. Eben started down the halls of Majestic, knowing that the captain wouldn't be far off. He spotted the Kridzin and Zorak representatives in the hall, passed them and turned the corner. He found Captain Norim with several other officers, standing outside the tribunal hall. Eben approached, extended his hand. Captain Norim, I have heard much about. Gerald broke through the group of officers, planting a hand on Eben's chest. He reacted as if he were a threat. Two Saren Marines stepped in and pushed Eben up against the wall, the officers pulling Gerald away. This is all just a game to you, is it? Gerald asked. The spite in his voice was alarming. Your fleet attacked my ship while I was away. Thought you could take advantage while I was gone, did you? I gave my testimony in the tribunal. Our data, I don't mean Furladen. I mean right now. The other officers let Gerald go, and the Marines released Eben. Captain, I wasn't aware of any such attack. You can't pretend you're just a pawn in this whole thing. Some lowly serf. You're the crown prince. For off's sake. Captain Norim and his guards left. Eben rubbed his neck where the guards had gripped him. I wasn't pretending.
Okay. So the Masav are uncharacteristically tall for humans. Evan just happens to be short. Yawn number 2. It's a sign. So I think this one's tricky. I don't think I'm gonna leave that note there, but I don't think I'm gonna change any of that yet. Treason. An act of war and treason. Treason against the conglomerate is what's being implied here. Treason against the conglomerate. Not treason against Masav. Saron and Masav are two separate things. Also, I keep like, the Emperor. The Emperor. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah. I'm like having a brain fart. An act of war and treason. Okay, yeah. We'll accept it. The adjudicators. I think those are just notes I'm making for later, so that I can remember those things. The youngest person to attain the rank of captain in the Saron fleet. Did I verify that? I hope. See, that's the thing, is sometimes you write something and you forget it. You know who's famous for that, though? And is the late and dearly missed Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. He is missed, but interestingly enough, for those who watch Dragon Ball, you'll notice a lot of those characters become irrelevant in Dragon Ball Z, so much so that he completely forgot about some of them. He forgot about Launch. She just completely disappeared off the face of the earth. What need do they have of that? What am I trying to say here? Say it was clear. His father didn't trust him by the words he'd handed him. This was no honor. The point his father, let's see, countered every point Eben had argued. The points his father had insisted he make. Okay. All right. I think we're going to have to leave it there for tonight. I'm going to have to come back to this tomorrow. Yep, 3 yawns and we're done. We can't go beyond that. Can't go beyond that. All right, that is the stream for tonight. Thank you for watching the replay. If you stuck around to the end, I appreciate it. One thing I'll note for anybody watching the replay or happens to stumble upon it, I'm looking into streaming on Twitch. And maybe Twitch and YouTube. I think I might. I don't know. Twitch is a new platform for me, so I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's worth a shot. Toodaloo.